then even if you have a peace agreement, how can you possibly dislodge the CIA from Ukraine or the MI6? Or by definition, they wouldn't, but they would be deceptive, I guess. So um, it's just hard to see how any deal would be able to encompass what the Russians demand.
Well, first of all, the idea that Russia is going to make compromises, I think, is mooted. I can't speak on behalf of Russia. Nobody can except the Russians, so they can do whatever they want to do. But I do study Russia, and I study past patterns of behavior, and I recognize that when the Russian president commits to something publicly, that's generally what's Russia's committed to. Um, and the Russian president is committed to terms and conditions that must be met for this conflict to end. And I don't see him making any compromises on that. The other thing about a compromise, it requires trust. Russia can't trust anybody. None of the actors on the other side of the table are trustworthy. None. There was some thinking that the United States could be, and that Russia could lean on the United States to lean on Europe. But the United States is actually not only, not trustworthy, they're at the center of this. They're the ones planning the anti-Russian actions. Um, so I would say that as long as Donald Trump is the president of the United States, there's no prospects of peace whatsoever through negotiation, that the Russians will continue to go through the process just to keep lines of communication open. Remember, the Russians didn't have lines of communication open with the Biden administration. And I think one important element of conflict avoidance is talking. And so I think the Russians are keen on keeping the lines of communication open only so far as it supports continued communication to avoid avoidable conflict. But you have, and the other good news, I mean, it's not good news, but I mean, it's big picture good news, I guess. NATO's about to die. I mean, rapid death. Um, this is the United States is going to make a move very soon on Greenland. Hopefully it won't be violent, but I mean, if the Danes and any Europeans that want to be deployed there think they're going to, they don't understand the people that are getting ready to come to Greenland. Trump is tasking the Joint Special Operations Command to come to Greenland. Okay, they just kill. Look what happened to Maduro's security force. No effort to take any prisoners. They just rolled in and they killed everybody. They aren't going to be, sitting there crying tears you know, of sorrow. Oh, the end of NATO. They have a mission. They've been given a mission. They're going to plan the mission. And when they come rolling in, any Dane stupid enough to lift his weapon against him will be killed on the spot, along with everybody else. Um, but we are close to having the United States militarily occupy Greenland, a NATO ally, and that'll be the end of NATO. That's the other good news, because this complicates greatly. You just saw the European, the I forget, I can't remember his name, sort of a fat old man, the head of defense for the European Union. He's sort of their defense advisor. I mean, it was sort of sorrowful to watch him. The United States, he said, is withdrawing from the security of Europe. Who will secure Europe? I thought that was Europe's job. Um, but Europe can't defend itself. So the good news is all the, you know, to have theater like the British have been doing, you have to have a stage. There has to be a setting. The setting is collapsing. NATO is going to die hopefully not a violent, but a very sudden death. And Europe has no plan B, none whatsoever, zero, no capacity. And we're going to be seeing the collapse of Europe, because what Donald Trump does better than anybody else is he will divide and conquer. As NATO dissolves, as Europe collapses, there's going to be countries desperate. And Trump is going to reach out and go, we'll have a bilateral relationship. We'll do a bilateral relationship with you. And next thing you know, the United States will build a European security architecture that Europe has no vote in. It's all going to be based upon a bilateral relationship between, baby boy and daddy. And that's the direction we're heading. So, old Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times. We've been cursed very heavily because these are extraordinarily interesting times. Interesting, not in a good way, interesting in a deeply disturbing way, but interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, I'd always hoped that NATO would be able to reform into some inclusive pan-European security architecture where we sought security, yeah, with other members instead of against non-members as an alliance. But I think it's just way too late. I think I agree with you. It should probably just die. This is it's beyond reform now. Um, just as a last question though, and I do think we're heading that direction with NATO, by the way. But yeah, last question: how do you make sense of this transformation of Trump? The new Trump, the one that bombs Venezuela, backs genocide in Gaza, bombs Venezuela, but also Iran, backs the genocide in Venezuela, will now conquer Greenland, it seems, and of course determined to defeat Russia. All of this, it's so contrary to the Donald Trump that ran for president. Now everything is about war. Again, re- he was gonna scale back the forever wars. Now he needs a $1.5 trillion military budget. He was worried about going bankrupt. Now, he can't spend money fast enough. America first has been turned on its head. Now it essentially means America will, fight wars to gain its greatness back. I mean, none of this was what he was speaking of during the campaign. Again, he was mocking Biden for bombing Yemen, I think, and now what's the difference? So how do you make sense of this? Because it's he fueled a lot of optimism among many people around the world that he kind of recognized that, okay, now it's either the American Republic or the Empire. Let's save the Republic. This was at least the logic I was left with. But now he's no, not anymore.
The Republic's dead, and he just killed it, and he said he killed it. Look, he said he doesn't believe in international law. I have to remind the president, although it's a stupid reminder because he's ignorant of these things, um, that international law, uh, you know, what he calls international law is the United Nations Charter. And the United Nations Charter is a treaty obligation incurred by the United States when the President of the United States signed it, and it was ratified by two-thirds of the United States Senate. Constitutionally, it becomes the supreme law of the land. So you can't just disregard international law. You can't disregard the Charter because to do so, you're disregarding the Constitution. But the president doesn't care about the Constitution. The constitutional republic is dead. The constitutional republic mandates three separate but equal branches of government. And the president is running roughshod over Congress, and the judiciary has been tamed. Um, maybe there's some fight left. We saw Congress just pass a war powers resolution, but I don't think Trump is going to pay much attention to that because he doesn't care if Congress impeaches him. He does, the resolution didn't pass with sufficient votes to override, to guarantee, conviction at trial. And so this president doesn't care. And, he said the things he said to get elected. There's no doubt about that. This is what was very attractive. This is what brought the RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard independents over, that 12 to 20% of the vote that brought him over, to victory. That now there's talk that he is basically seeking to manipulate how America votes, that he is going to cook the books. He's going to steal an election, steal a midterm election to guarantee that he remains in power. Our country is physically occupied by stormtroopers who operate above the law, who are not afraid to murder American citizens in broad daylight. This whole ICE invasion and occupation of major American cities is, again, fundamentally unconstitutional, and it doesn't meet anybody's vision of what a constitutional republic looks like. The president today is a de facto dictator. He is a dictator with no law. He says that he doesn't need international law. He relies upon his own morality. Well, given the Epstein files, I think we need to question his moral character. I mean, given the fact that this man has lied openly to the American people and to the world, and today he is the most war-hungry president ever. And maybe Andrew Jackson, back when he was taking on the Cherokee Nation, was as war mongering. But this president, he is Orwellian in everything he does. What he says, the exact opposite is the truth. He wants the Nobel Peace Prize because he's the world's greatest warmonger. And that's where we are today. And the American people may find out that by ceding so much trust, confidence, and power to this man, they've taken away their ability to, rectify the errors of their way. It was always the possibility in American democracy that we could vote the guys out. But if Trump takes over, continues to use ICE as a vehicle of intimidation and occupation, and starts gaming the system to guarantee an outcome in the midterm election, we don't function as a constitutional republic anymore.
Oh, it seems like it disappointed a lot of people, and again, this is the tragedy because he seemed to have had his finger on the pulse. He realized, where the country was going wrong, where the world was going wrong. He recognized the weaknesses, but also the opportunities in terms of how, saying, well, it would be a good idea to get along with Russia, something simple. And of course, this is one of the diseases we have in NATO, where I hear European leaders say, well, we can't do that. That's something Putin would want. But, some point you want the opponent to have some security as well, if you want security for yourself. But he seemed to be on just, spot on a lot of these things. But this new Trump,
Well, I don't think it's a new Trump, though. I think what we're seeing is that he's been a liar the entire time. He treated the American people like a love interest. He said all the right things. He sent us flowers. He gave us nice perfume on our birthday. He never missed a holiday or event. He was there for every important event in our life. My God, we fell in love with this guy. We look at the attention he's giving us. He has to be sincere about wanting a long and fruitful relationship. And then as soon as we got married, it turns out he had a mistress the entire time. That mistress was war and power and narcissism. This is all a plan that he's been operating on. This isn't a new Trump. This is Trump. This is what Trump did. And the American people have every right to feel deceived, but we're trapped in a relationship we can't get out of. I hope that the American people come out and vote in the midterm and do what needs to be done to limit the power of this madman. But if he's going to start cooking the books, if he's going to start manipulating the system, Stalin, I think, said, it doesn't matter who votes. It matters who counts the votes. And I think Trump's going to be the guy counting the votes, and the vote count's going to be, and here's the irony again, that this man is such a liar that he's going to do to the American people the exact thing that he accused Joe Biden of doing in 2020. He's going to steal an election. And the 25th Amendment couldn't come quick enough in my mind.
Yeah, just watch him give us, well, 2 times give speech telling how Maduro killed millions of people, which doesn't make much sense. But we feel to be very post-truth at this point. Anyways, we ran out of time, but I wanted to thank you so much for taking time as always. I know you must be incredibly busy, so thanks again.
Well, thank you for having me. I think it was a good conversation.